Trading for Giannis seems like a no-brainer, but does recent NBA history tell us that it isn't?
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. I'm Wes Goldberg. I'm host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real Jam Radio and a credentialed Heat media member who covers this team every day. My co-host David Ramil is on vacation, so it's just me solo. If you missed Friday morning's episode, it was a deep dive into all of the latest stuff regarding Giannis, his situation with the Milwaukee Bucks, and what the Miami Heat would be willing to include in a potential offer for Giannis. So that went up a little bit later in the feed because honestly, I was late to recording it, and then I did record it, and I did the entire episode with my microphone unplugged, and then realized that when it was over, as I was trying to produce it, and I was like, why is there no audio here? Well, it was because the microphone wasn't plugged in, genius. So I had to redo the entire episode, and that takes a long time, and so it was out a little bit later than I wanted it, but it is worth the listen, and if you haven't listened to it yet, please check it out. We cover all the bases and everything we know, including some stuff on what player the Heat would not be willing to include potentially in a Giannis deal. But we're going to do one more thing today, answering questions from our Locked On Heat text line. And this one comes from Billy, who writes in, is trading for Giannis a double-edged sword? I understand the Heat don't have a superstar level player, and you need somebody in the top 10 player rankings to truly compete. But because no players enter free agency anymore, trading for these stars means gutting a team and removing all of its depth, which made the team attractive to the star in the first place. And as we've seen with guys like Carmelo Anthony, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, etc., many of these large superstar trades that gut the team that the star is going to end up struggling to build a contender around that disgruntled star that they just acquired. Like Jimmy Butler to Miami for scraps or Kawhi to Toronto for DeRozan are the few rare examples of not gutting a roster to get a star. This is a great point, and it's something I've actually been thinking a lot about recently, even before all this Giannis stuff, but just sort of in regards to the Miami Heat and just the NBA in general is, are these star trades overrated? We spend so much time talking about them and discussing the next superstar to get traded and wondering who it's going to be and looking at a Ja Morant situation and be like, oh boy, here it comes. And it just doesn't feel like these star trades materialize in the championships that they promise to materialize. LeBron James is really the only one who's done it. Whether he was, and it's not, that's different from even disgruntled star getting traded, but even just a star player switching teams. And LeBron's one of the few guys that's actually left, gone to a new team, and pretty much assembled a championship caliber roster instantly. Kevin Durant went to Golden State. They were already a championship team coming off of the greatest regular season we'd had ever seen. And they lost in the finals, sure, but that was a constructed, already like a turnkey championship team. Kevin Durant does not get credit for that. You think about the teams that James Harden has joined since emerging with the Houston Rockets. Those teams traded for a star player like Harden, didn't work out. Kyrie Irving, same thing, didn't work out. The Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George did not work out. These teams that have gone out there and used superstar trade as the main function of building its championship core, it hasn't worked. It has not worked. And so you look at the championship teams of the last few years. The Thunder, built through the draft. Now, I will say this, sort of, right? The Thunder were technically built by trading for their best player. They traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but that's a little bit different. Nobody thought Shai was going to be this. But I do like to point that out. It's like, oh my God, Sam Presti and the Thunder are so good at drafting. Well, they did trade for their number one player. They didn't draft Shai. So I just like to throw that out there. But still, built primarily through the draft and smart kind of moves. No superstar trades, right? Shai was not a superstar at the time of that trade. They were trading away the superstar. You think of the Boston Celtics, right? They drafted Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They traded away their core to get those picks, to go get those guys. The Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, drafted him in the second round. They drafted Jamal Murray in the first round. They made a small trade for Aaron Gordon, but that was not a superstar level trade. Uh, 2022, the Golden State Warriors again. Kevin Durant was gone. It was the guys they drafted. It was Steph. It was Clay. It was Draymond. It was Jordan Poole, right? They made a minor deal to get Andrew Wiggins, who was a big part of that team. But those are the kinds of trades that tend to materialize. Even you think about the Mavericks in 2024, right? Like they drafted Luka, or they acquired Luka's rights on draft night, which we're going to count as drafting him. And then they made minor deals for Gafford and PJ Washington. It's those minor deals that tend to springboard those championship teams as long as they've got that superstar player in-house. And so I've thought a lot about this in regards to the Heat of, would they trade for Kevin Durant or something like that, or now Giannis? And does it always work out? And part of the reason why I think it's harder now is because of this new apron situation where if you go out and trade that player, it's very hard to acquire that player, trade away the salary that it requires to get traded out. You're trading away depth inherently and bringing in that star player. And it's harder now more than it's ever been to then surround that player, to Billy's point, to surround that player with the kind of players that you need. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Just means it's really hard. And if you go with the recent history here, it doesn't work out. Now, I will also say this about recent history. Let's take it by a case-by-case basis. We always say, there's always superstars are always getting traded in the NBA. Sort of. Not really, though. Everybody has this idea that it's only a matter of time until the next superstar gets traded. But that wasn't really the case over the last several years. I like to call this group the disgruntled five. It wasn't, hey, the next disgruntled superstar. It was always one of these disgruntled superstars. It was always Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, or Chris Paul. It was one of those star level players that was always getting traded. The disgruntled five moved around, and it gave us this false sense that these guys, that a superstar was always getting traded, but it was always one of those superstars getting traded. And Kevin Durant, for as incredible as he is as an individual player, has shown that he does not have the best ability to create championship teams by his mere presence. James Harden, the playoff struggles. Kyrie Irving, overrated, I would say. Like he's incredible in moments, and he's the owner of one of the biggest shots in NBA Finals history. But in terms of a number one guy, we saw what that looks like with the Boston Celtics, and it's not championship caliber. Russell Westbrook, tough to play with. Mercurial, hard to fit a basketball team around him. And right now, clearly not what he used to be when he was an MVP caliber player. Chris Paul, same thing. So it's always one of those. That's the disgruntled five. It was those players always moving. And then you've got Kawhi Leonard, right? Who went from San Antonio to Toronto, then Toronto to the Clippers. And he goes to the Clippers as a free agent on the premise that they would trade and acquire Paul George. And Kawhi Leonard, as we have seen, is not trustworthy as your number one guy, your leader, your face of the franchise. There's just too many off-the-court leadership flaws with him. So maybe trading for a superstar is overrated, or maybe the right superstar has not been traded in quite a long time. Which brings us back to Giannis. Feels like Giannis is the right kind of superstar. Hard worker, extremely intelligent, consensus top 3 guy, won a championship in Milwaukee, still an elite player, about all the right things. Really gave it as he gets so much credit for sticking it out in Milwaukee as long as he has. And now that they can't contend, he might, and we haven't gotten there yet officially yet, but he might get to the point where he says, you know what, it's time for me to move on and ask for a trade. Feels like Giannis, even turning 31 this month, feels like Giannis is the right guy. Now that said, Giannis has kind of sneakily had some injury concerns, not super durable over the years. He's already now going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a calf strain that he suffered on Wednesday night. He played 67 games last year. 73 the year before that, pretty good. 63 the year before that, 67, 61, 63. I mean, he's not Joel Embiid, right? But he's also not playing 80 games a season. And he has a history of not finishing playoff series because of injuries. is the way he plays just wearing him down by either the postseason or just over the course of his career. And for somebody who is 30 years old, I'm recording this December 5th. He'll be 31 years old tomorrow, December 6th. So for somebody who's 31 years old, is that something you have to consider? Ultimately, I think Giannis is still so good, I'm not that worried about it. And you take away this year, and these Bucks teams, even though they haven't really contended for a championship, and there's definitely been some playoff failures there, they were always just like a 50 win every single year, roll out of bed, start the regular season, win 50 games every single season. That's because of Giannis. He's that kind of guy. Consensus top 3 guy. You saw the numbers he was putting up this year, some of the career best numbers he's ever had. But to Billy's point here, to get back to the question, even acquiring those guys, can you still build the roster around those guys? And this is one of the reasons why you've seen teams like the Heat, the Lakers, and the Clippers start to plan for the summer of 2027 when somebody like Giannis and Jokic and Steph Curry can be free agents. They want to know they wanted to be prepared for the event that somebody like Giannis does make it to free agency, because we haven't seen it in a long time, but it doesn't mean it won't ever happen again. But it does feel like this Giannis domino is going to fall before we get to the summer of 2027. So if you want Giannis, you're going to have to trade for him. And that's where it gets tough. But that's where a team like the Miami Heat, I think, they have the unique ability to do this. Right? First of all, this is why the front office is always looking for those kind of deals. Right? They've been criticized a ton for not going all in for Kevin Durant or whoever it is. That's because they're always looking for the Jimmy Butler trade, because they know the goal isn't to acquire the superstar. That's what the Clippers do, right? That's the irrelevant franchise that is striving for relevancy. The Heat don't have that problem. The goal isn't to acquire the superstar. The goal is to win the championship. And in order to win the championship, typically you need that superstar. So if we can acquire the superstar, but it drains the rest of the roster, and now we're no longer a championship caliber team, then what are we even doing this for? And so that's why they've tried to do more of the Jimmy Butler style deals as opposed to the going all in for the Kevin Durant style deals. And by the way, they've been right. Look at what the Phoenix Suns did. They went all in for Kevin Durant. That got them nowhere. But for somebody like Giannis, that might be a little bit different. I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you why I think the Heat are in a unique position to actually be able to trade for Giannis and still build a championship contender after this. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear. It's stuff you're actually going to want. I love that it's not just food. You can get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, even socks, all delivered. DoorDash has you covered for late night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double overtime fuel-ups. So, next time somebody goes off for 50, use the promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off your order with DoorDash. With DoorDash Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply, no purchase necessary. Ends April 13th, open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. In one big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as the guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scorers, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And for the NBA, you can find on FanDuel lines for every single game. The Heat playing the Magic Friday night, playing the Sacramento Kings on Saturday night, games that we'll talk about. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com. Go to FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so can you. The Miami Heat are in a unique position to trade for a superstar player like Giannis and still build a championship roster. And I'll tell you why. It will cost you a lot to go get Giannis. It will deplete you of your depth. Depth is very important in today's NBA. I think free agency is a really interesting spot in the NBA right now. I think NBA free agency is actually starting to become more like NFL free agency, where in the NFL, you rarely see star players move in free agency. Free agency is really just for reinforcements, role players. Hey, we need a left guard. Hey, we need to get, some pass rush depth. We need a nickel corner. Like, those are the kinds of things that you see in NFL free agency. And I quite like that for the NBA because it makes it so that there's a season for superstars, which is now becoming trade deadline in February. And then there's a season for role players where they get their shine. And then somebody like Norm Powell moves and you're like, oh, whoa, that's interesting. And we get to actually talk about that. And then we get to see the results of it during the season. But anyway, in terms of where the Heat are, this is why you put together a world-class developmental team. During the Big Three era, the Miami Heat struggled to develop young players, draft picks, players like that. And that's, this was 10 plus years ago. So the Heat as an organization were even in a very different place at that point. But since LeBron James left, this team has slowly been building its player development program up from not very much mattering for a franchise that had historically not valued draft picks and young players and always looked to acquire veterans, right? To a team that has kind of flipped that over the last 10 to 15 years to the point where they are world-class in terms of player development. Whether it's undrafted guys like Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, whatever, or first-round picks, what we're seeing right now with Kel'el Ware. And that's what puts the Heat in a unique position to be able to trade for somebody like Giannis, deplete its depth in acquiring that player, and then within a couple of years, probably replenish that depth with either draft picks, undrafted players, younger free agents that they go out and get. You even go back to a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., right? They went out and got him, turned him into a very important player for that 2021 or that 2020 finals run. The Heat can do it because they have a world-class development staff and development program. So even if you trade away a couple of your young players and your development success stories like a Tyler Hero or something like that, it's not to say you could just replace those guys outright because those are all good players and you don't want to disrespect those guys and what they're able to do. But if you add Giannis and then you're able to replenish behind them with some rotation level players who kind of, seemingly come out of nowhere and you develop, yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you do it in today's NBA. Because you need the superstar player. You still need that superstar to win the championship, especially if you're going to beat like this Thunder or Nuggets or Rockets team. One of those teams is coming out of the West. So it's not just about coming out of the East. It's coming out of the East and then beating one of these juggernauts who don't seem to be going away anytime soon. And by the way, when one of them does go away, the Spurs are right there with Victor Wembanyama. Giannis is the kind of player that gets you into that kind of conversation of beating one of those teams. I got a couple more mailbag questions that I want to get to here. This one comes from Malachi, who writes in, can you guys discuss the pros and cons of getting somebody like Anthony Simons from the Celtics? I really think he could bolster the bench unit of the Heat and even to a bigger level. If they can get the Rozier contract thing resolved, could we do a Rozier and Simons swap, or how would we acquire him? I like Simons. I remember seeing him, I think it was going into his second season. Yeah, it was going into his second season when he was still with Portland. And he was doing Las Vegas Summer League again. And I remember watching him in Summer League and watching him shoot threes. And remember, I've covered the Warriors. I've covered Steph Curry up close in person. I know what elite shooting looks like. When I saw Anthony Simons shoot, I was like, that guy is among the best three-point shooters I've seen. He's not Steph, obviously, but that guy is among the best three-point shooters I've seen. And a backcourt that includes Tyler Hero, Norm Powell, and Anthony Simons would be really interesting. I think the only way to do it is to swap Rozier for Simons. I don't know that the Celtics would do that because I'm not really sure what they're getting out of it. They're not getting enough salary cap relief where that would matter for them. Because their salary cap relief is going to be more short-term. If they're going to get under the tax, I think they want to do it. They want to get under the first apron. They want to do it now. They don't want to do it in the offseason when Rozier's contract expires. So if they're looking to move Simons, and they're playing well right now, they might not want to move Simons. But if they are looking to move Simons, I think they're going to be looking for more cap relief. Now, you don't trade Powell, who's making out like $6-7 million less than Simons. You don't trade Powell for Simons. That doesn't make sense. So that's really the only way. So I don't see it happening. But I like Anthony Simons as a player, and even though he's playing for the Celtics, I like to see that he's at least having a little bit of success. It was a rocky start for him, but him coming off the bench there in Boston, I think, is a good fit for him. Probably, I don't know how much time he spends with the Celtics ultimately, but it's good to get out of Portland and get to a relevant franchise for a guy whose game I like. PJ writes in, "Hey guys, love the show. I was doom scrolling on TikTok today and fell down the rabbit hole of Jordan Poole highlights, and I was wondering if the Pelicans decide to blow it up, would he be a good fit on this roster depending on the price? As always, keep up the good work. Have a great day." Thanks for the kind words, PJ, number one. Thank you. You're a relatively new subscriber to the Locked On Heat Insider community on Subtext, or Locked On Heat text line, we also call it. So thanks for signing up. If anybody else wants to sign up before we get out of here, do so with the link in the show notes. It's $4.99 for the first 30 days, and then it's free for the first 30 days, and then it goes to $5 a month basically after that. You get access to our asking questions for post-game shows, mailbags like this, game notes during games, intel, rumors, injury updates, and all those kind of texts straight from us. But to answer our final question here, first of all, I don't know that the Pelicans need to decide to blow it up to get Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is one of those guys that feels gettable to me. Even without the blow it up option. Jeremiah Fears is really coming on for New Orleans. It feels like they're really leaning into now the Fears Derek Queen thing. Jordan Poole's been hurt for them. So he hasn't even been really playing lately. But if you give the Pelicans a decent offer for Jordan Poole, they'll probably bite. Now, what does that look like for the Heat? I don't really know. Am I all that interested in having Jordan Poole in Miami? I'm not. Defensively, he's not good. He's not engaged. He's a poor decision maker with the ball in his hands. Just look at his assist to turnover ratio over the course of his career, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. It's not good. He's not an efficient player. But even just watching him, I mean, just sometimes it's he does things that like they just make you want to bang your head against the wall. You're like, why are you doing that? He's talented. He's a talented shot maker. He gets to the rim. I think that's really important. Especially like in this Heat offense, you could see how it would fit, right? Jordan Poole in the open court. That to me is interesting. But in terms of even just the level of salary that you would have to give up, would I rather have Terry Rozier's expiring coming off the books or Jordan Poole at $30 million? I'd kind of rather just have Rozier's expiring come off the books, regardless of what happens with this gambling probe and this investigation. So I think Jordan Poole has moments of being a really good player. I thought he had a really strong first half of the season last year for the Wizards. But there's just too much inconsistency there, and it's too much salary for a wild card type of player that I'm comfortable with. I don't think it's the right fit for the Miami Heat. That'll do it for us today. This has been Locked On Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.